Hi everybody, and welcome to the second video looking at the DA40 NG variant, the new generation variant, which has got the G1000 GPS and autopilot. So this is part 2, and we're really going to look at the cabin lights, how we can control the cabin lights for night flying. That's what they're there for. So let's have a look at what we've got available in the cabin, and then we'll talk about how we program them up. It's a bit more complicated than usual. We do need to use some scripting to make it work, but I'll talk you through the scripting process. I have done other videos on the scripting which goes in much more detail, so it's a bit of a light touch on the scripting, but it should be enough to get you through the process. So if we have a look first of all at what we've got available, we need to fly this at dusk so we can see the buttons and see what's going on, see the lights happening. So firstly, on the actual control panel here, we've got two variable knobs. These control potentiometers behind the scenes. This one here lights up our emergency instruments and the text behind the buttons. So if I turn this, you can see they get progressively brighter, and you can see the text here lighting up. And if I turn that around, we can turn that off. Okay, so that's the instruments that we can light up. And here we've got what they call the floodlight. It lights up with an LED strip underneath here. If I change my view, you can see there's a kind of LED strip under here, sort of a bit like kitchen lights kind of thing. So they're controlled with this one here, and again we can make that brighter than you need to be honest. It's quite bright lights, and then we can turn that off. And above your head there are some cabin lights, one that shines down on the pilot, one that shines down on the autopilot and the co-pilot, and one for passengers in the back. We've got a cabin light there. So we've got three lights that we can switch on up here as well, and they also, if I get this right, they shine down here and they light up your joystick and the controls here and the pedestal in the middle. I'm going to turn them off without looking up. I'm going to turn them off from my Stream Deck, so I've already got them programmed in. So you can see there's the pilot, there's the co-pilot light, which is playing up a bit today for some reason, and here we've got the light 3, which is for the passengers behind. So they're the three lights we've got there, and that's what we're going to program up in our Stream Deck. So let's have a look at how we're doing this. Firstly, that's my button that takes me into my controls for the lights, and it's a folder. So there's not a profile, it's a folder, which means that it's automatically exits back to where it came from. So I can reuse this folder and tweak it for lots of other aircraft, and it works quite well. It saves me making lots of different profiles. So let's go into that folder. And this button here is the way back out, so it goes back wherever it came from. So we can folder into that. And here's my cabin lights. I'm not using that one for the moment. I'm using that as a demonstration. In fact, I'll get rid of it and we'll bring it back later. These are my cabin lights, and they're just low B and axis toggles. They're straightforward toggle switches. Those three lights at the top are all controlled by the same command. And what happens is that we index them here. So we send one to the cabin lights, and that switches on the pilot's light. So let's just demonstrate that. So if I press on there, that will turn on cabin light number 1 and turn off cabin light number 1. Cabin light number 2 is with the same command, but we're sending the value 2 to it. And for the third one, the light for the passengers, same command, but we're sending the value 3 to it. So I'm not using any fancy graphics, haven't done anything for the graphics at all, just using the straightforward graphic that comes with the Lorbe's toggle. But I have done my trick of changing the colour of the text depending whether it's on or off. So the off is in red text and the on is in green text. So that's all I've done there. We have to read a variable. a little bit more complex, not much, but a little bit more complex, that we have to read using this variable here. And again, it's indexed when we're looking at light 1, we're checking if light 1 is on or off, so that it puts the right graphic and sends the right code. Cabin 2, again, it's light cabin, this time index 2, so we index it within the command, within the variable for the variable, but we don't index it here in the write event. We send the appropriate value. So I said I've got that there just as a quick demo, so I'll show you how I enter the variable, which is a little bit tricky, catches people out on the variable. So I do that using my script editor from X's and O's. And I'm going to insert a variable, and I'm looking for cabin. So we'll search for cabin, and here we want to check if a particular cabin light is on. So click on there, right hand click to copy it to my clipboard, and this can go away now, and paste it in there. And it doesn't give me any indication that it's going to index. You may have seen other variables where it goes colon index, and it encourages you, it instructs you to apply an index to it. This one here, no clues, but we have to type in whether we're looking at light 1, light 2 or light 3. So that's how we enter the index. We literally just have to type it in, but no clues given. Okay, hope that clears that one up. So let's delete that and get rid of that. Okay, so the cabin light's relatively easy to set up. There's no potentiometer, no dimming or brightening of those. They're just on or off. These ones here, these are the ones that are more complex because we do have the dimming functions. So this is a steam gauge here. It says here it's a steam gauge. So it's one of Lorby's steam gauges dragged into here. And I've got another video where I show you how I draw these. It's just drawn. I think I drew them in a free program, GIMP, which is great for drawing vector graphics and stuff like that. I'm not very good with it, but I have done a video on how they work, and I'll link to it in the description. But it's got two elements to it. One is finding out what the value is and drawing where this marker comes. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the view for a moment. So I'm going to hide this away, and I'll bring it up as an insert so you can see the two at the same time. So if I go back to my cockpit here, you should see that as I turn that knob there, it changes the text on it and moves the pointer around. So that's what that one does. And the other one below looks at the floodlight and does exactly the same kind of idea. So they are steam gauges. Let's just put them back, and I'll bring the real stream deck back into play. So it's got that function there. I've added two extra functions to it because they have got key presses you can do to it. And if I press on that stream deck, on that steam gauge, and just one quick press on it, that should automatically send that up to 100%. So I've programmed a key press in which says put that light to 100%, and if I hold the button down, a long key press on it, it's programmed so that it should automatically put it to 0. Okay, so I've added two extra functions. I've done the same with the floodlight as well. A short press sends the floodlight to 100%, and a long press should set it to 0. You've got to hold it for about a second, and that head sets it to 0. And then I've got these controls in between here which will push it up by 5% each time, or the minus button over here will take it down by 5% each time. So there's some scripting behind that to make all this happen. But let's talk about this steam gauge here. So apart from dropping in the graphics and drawing those, which I've dealt with in another video, these are the commands behind it. It says here, read potentiometer number 16. Number 16 controls those instrument lights, and get the value, and it's got this multiplier here that it multiplies it by to turn it the right number, not degrees, it turns it the right number of radians. So there's a little bit of calculations, which again I've dealt with in another video of how you work in radians rather than degrees. But funny enough, the starting point is set at 90 degrees anti-clockwise from there. So that's where it starts life. The shift value just says it's in the center. 72 is the center point of the graphic. Okay, and we want to put the text on it. So again, we read exactly the same variable. We read light potentiometer number 16, and we read it in percentages and drop that in here. So where do I get that variable from? Well, again, it's in the axes and O's script in the RPN editor, and if we do a search here for the potentiometer variable, the only variable we've got is light potentiometer, and it's expecting an index, and it also wants to send it to us as a number. The number will be between 0 and 1, so it'll be like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, which is not really very useful for us. So we want to change that to percentage. So I'll show you how we do that. Let's go into here, and if I clear that variable off for the moment, and now we'll put it in again as if we were putting it in new. So light potentiometer, right hand click to put it on my clipboard, close that down, and then we'll make this live. So we want to change here that index so it's reading 16. So we just highlight that, and we're going to read potentiometer number 16, and we don't want it as a number, so we can highlight the word number, and I want that to be percentage, so we'll delete all of the word number and we type in percent, and we just override the fact of what was there. So we do that for that one, and we do the same for that's reading the variable that controls the pointer, and we would do exactly the same here for the text variable. We just put the index in and overwrite number with percentage. It's not case sensitive, but it's good practice. All this stuff here you can leave alone. That's just how we have the text presented. Here we want to make sure that we're using Tahoma script size 50. So you can see everything I'm using here. You do have to track down the variable, the video that I'll index to, so you can see how I drew those. Okay, and there's the text color and the background color, that kind of stuff that we can play with. And this is where you upload the graphics to. The background graphic, the turning element of it, and if you're using a mask over the top, you'd upload those. Okay, so that's how we get the steam gauge to turn around. But I said I allocated two buttons to it: the normal button event and a long press event, and they've got two bits of script attached to them. So you change this from whatever variable you would normally be reading, and you tell it it's a script, and there's a script in there. And I've got a PowerPoint presentation trying to talk you through how that script works. So the normal press event is designed to switch on that circuit and then set it to 100%. So it's got two elements to it. The first one is we want to send a key event, panel lights on. You can get that variable, that event, and put it in, but you do need to add some text to it. Firstly, if you just put it in as normal, you've got to make sure that it's got this greater than arrow. That means I'm sending a value to panel lights, to that command, and I'm sending a 1 to turn it on. So 1 is sent to the panel lights, and the brackets and everything important. Now normally this gets written as one line. I've broken it up into two lines just for clarity for you, but if we go back to my Stream Deck here, it's actually all one continuous line, and it's only broken up because it doesn't fit in the box any other way. And this is the second command. We're sending to this key event called light potentiometer set. We need to send two values. Firstly, the power I want to send 100% power to potentiometer number 16. So we're sending two values to it. And that's what this 2 is about. We need to, again, manually type this in. This says I'm sending it to the key event, but I'm sending you two values. If you don't put that in, it won't work. So I'm sending you two values. The first value is your percentage, and the second one is which circuit to apply that to. Okay, so we're sending 100% to number 16, and it just does the rest. Okay, so that's the normal press button, and you could just type that in, or you can copy some bits in, so long as you edit it correctly, and that's what it should look like. Setting a 1 turns it on, and there we go, 100% to circuit number 16 for the potentiometer, and we are sending two values to it. The other one was the long press, which is here. Long press, we can't control what we mean by long press in here. Other parts of axes and O's you can control how long that is, but it's about a second. You hold it for about a second and then let go, and it goes, oh, that's a long press. Don't hold your finger on it forever, because it won't detect until you actually release it. So hold for about a second and release. And again, it's a script, and the script looks like this. What we're trying to do is to turn the value down to 0, and then switch the light panels off, so we actually turn that circuit completely off. So the first one is, as before, it's just the opposite of what we've done here. We're sending it to the key event light potentiometer set. We're sending two values to it. The first value is where you want the power to be 0, and the second one is it's which circuit. It's number 16 that gets set to 0. And now we're going to send a true to light panels off. Okay, so again, it's got to have this greater than sign. It doesn't mean greater than here, it means I'm sending to. It's kind of a Linux or is it MS-DOS, but a pipeline sending to, I can't remember, I haven't done it for a long while now, but that is this is going to that. That's where it's going. Okay, so that's what that means there. So they're the two events for the buttons on and off. And for some people that'll be enough, but I really like to try and push it a little bit, so I want to have the increase and decrease for both of these. So let's have a look at the increase for my instrument panels. So that text, the text there is just the instrument there, and it's the panel lights. So I have written a script that goes into Axis and O's script editor, and I've called it the DA40 next generation panel increase. And the value we sent really doesn't matter, it gets overwritten by this. So I've just put a 3 there while I was experimenting to see if the value mattered, and it doesn't. Okay, so there's just one event. There's no long press event. We're just sending the instruction to increase the panel. So we need to look at the script for that. And again, I've got videos on how you actually write the scripts, the actual process you go through. But I've made a group for the demos, and every time I write a script, it goes into here for the demonstration. And it's all controlled by the script title here and the script group where it gets sent to when you either save as new, or if you make a change, this update button will become live. But if I want to look at my script, I want to look at the panel increase, the DA40 next generation panel increase. And again, it's written as one long line of script. And when you write it in here, to make sure that you realize that there are actually spaces, if I put a space in here, it makes the space look like a dot, so you can see clearly that there's a dot. So I'm going to update that script now because I put a dot in there. So I've separated this instruction from the next instruction with a space, and the spaces are quite vital. So you don't type a dot, you type the ordinary space bar, and it shows it as a dot, so because they're quite critical in this language. I've got it in PowerPoint broken up into steps, so you can see what the steps are, but when you type it in, it really does get typed in, put in as one long script on one line. But let's go back to my PowerPoint and let's have a look at how that script works. So it's got a number of sections. So this is the increase one, and we assume that we're going to be increasing it from 0, but it'll work with any. But we have to make sure that the panel light circuit is switched on. So the very first thing it does is it sends a 1 to that key event. So again, there's the greater than sign saying we're sending 1 to this to turn the panel lights on, just like when we pressed the button when it was a steam gauge. So panel lights goes on. Doesn't matter if it's already on, it just sends it anyway. Now we need to check the value of the potentiometer number 16 as a percentage, because we mustn't go over 100%. We can't just add constantly more to it. In fact, adding more to it doesn't create any great problem. The biggest problem comes if you were decreasing it and decrease below 0, because it rolls around below 0 and it crashes. So it's more vital that we do this check, but it's good practice to check and don't go above 100%. So this one here checks the value, the aircraft value of circuit number 16 as a percentage, and it does this comparison. And this is because it's called an RPN script, it's reverse Polish notation. It's a different way of representing a number. What we want to do is to get two values. This is value 1, whatever the value of the potentiometer is, and this is value number 2, 90, and we're comparing those two. So two values, and then what's the function? The function is compare, and I want to see if it's less than or equal to 90. If it is less than 90 or equal to 90, then we know we've got headroom to add another 5% to it. So if that's true, if we're below the 90 threshold, we can get the value of the potentiometer. Again, it's the same value we're getting in percentages, and here's the second value, 5, and add them together. So that says add 5 to that. So if it was at 80%, it will now be 85%, and we want to write that new value, that 85%, to potentiometer number 16. So as before, we've got to have the arrow saying I'm writing to you, I'm sending you some stuff, and in fact I'm sending you two values. So again, we need to type that in, and the two values are the circuit number 16 and this calculated number here, which was the old percentage of 16 with 5 added to it. So it's not 5 plus 16, and that's the mistake a lot of people make with this. They are two separate values. That plus is these two values. It's value 1, value 2, and a function. And the function is add. That creates this. That creates the first value, and the second value is 16, and write that to here. Okay, so it only does that bit if it's below 90 or at 90. Then we know we've got headroom. If it's at 90 or above, the only place to go is straight up to 100. So we've got an else, and you notice else is spelt ELS. There's no E on the end of it. That's correct for this language. Else, just send 100. Don't bother doing any more calculations. Just send 100 to circuit number 16. So it's the same structure of I'm sending you two values, and we're writing to that value, and these are the two values. Next time it goes around, if it's at 100, it'll know, so it won't bother doing that. It will just keep sending 100 if it gets to 100, so it won't go above 100. So that's how this one works. So it looks mighty complicated, but it isn't really. It is. Make sure the circuit's switched on. Check if we can add more to it. If we can, add another 5 to it and send it. If we're at the threshold or we're close to the top, just send 100 to it. Just go to full power straight off. The decrease one looks like this, and it's very much the same thing, but in reverse. So we check here, we check the value and check if it's at 10 or above. So check the value against this, and is it greater than equal to? If it's greater than 10, we know we can happily take 5 off it. So again, there's the if it's true, get that value, and there's the 5. minus. So take 5 from that and then write that new value to circuit number 16. Exactly the same process as before. We're writing to circuit number 16 whatever our new calculated value was. So if it was at 20, take 5 of it, we'll now write 15 to that potentiometer. If it's at 10 or below, there's nowhere else to go but straight to 0. So there's the else command on that one there. And turn the panels off. Don't turn the panels off unless we're below 10 or below. So that is within the curly brackets of the else command. That's part of the else command. So the else command does two things. It sets the power to 0 and then turns it off. Okay, so that one there turns it on whatever happens. This one only turns it off if we need to turn it off, and that's just how it works, and it works fine that way. No problems with it. Okay, so the curly brackets are, these braces are quite important. They say what to do in the if and what to do in the else situation. So I hope that makes sense. Right, and it's very much the same structure. If we go back to my Stream Deck here, so there's that one there, that's saying call the panel increase. That one there is calling my script for the decrease, and the scripts, as we said, are in this editor here. So if I look at my panel decrease, there it all is in its glory, but it's this one long line, not broken up as I had it in my PowerPoint, so it just gets put in as one long line. Okay, so we now need to look at the floodlight. So the floodlight is controlled by potentiometer number 5, but it's exactly the same structure as the previous one. It's just the 16s are now converted to 5. So copying and pasting is your saviour here. So copying from one, pasting in the other works absolutely fine. When you switch between the two, copy, paste and submit, even though you haven't completed it, click submit, because if you go back it will have forgotten everything and wipes it clean. So copy, paste, edit, submit, copy, paste, edit, submit, and it'll get there quite quickly for you. Okay, so it's number 16 that we're looking at, light potential number 16. Read that variable and control where that pointer is with exactly the same settings as before. The multiplier, the offsets and everything exactly the same. The text, again, read the same variable, number 16, so you can probably copy and paste it from here to here once it's, so it's number 5, that for the that potentiometer. 16 is this one, 5 is that one, and that's your text variable sorted out. Uploading exactly the same graphic. So you can, in fact, copying the entire button, copy that button from there to there. Once that one's working, copy it, and the only adjustments you need to make are 16 change to 5, 16 change to 5 again for these two variables here, and then we've got the script down here, and it's exactly the same as script, except this one is the glare shields. This one was turning the panel lights on. This one here is turning the glare shield lights on. So again, very simple edit, and we want to turn that on, and then we want to send 100 to circuit number 5, to potentiometer number 5, and that is exactly the same. So again, the only bit of edit there is the 5, and the last one here is the long press event, where we want to send a 0 to circuit 5, so that will be identical to that, except that will be 16, this will be number 5, and turning the glare shield lights off rather than turning the panel lights off. So once you've got that working, this is pretty much a doddle. And then the floodlights, again, we've got two scripts to call, and they're pretty much the same structure as before, so copying and editing, but we want to call either the glare shield, the glare increment, or decrease the decrement ones, and they are in here, and again pretty much identical. So if we look at the increment one, it's turning the glare shield lights on, checking potentiometer number 5 to check if it's above 90. So let's look at the structure in PowerPoint. This is the button presses on the steam gauge. So that's the one that turns the lights, glare shield lights on, and sets it to 100%. Again, so circuit number 5. And this is the one that turns it to 0 and then turns the glare shield lights off. So that's what's behind on the actual normal press and long press. And these are the scripts that I'm using in my script editor. So the first one is make sure the glare shield light circuit is on. Check number 5. If it's above 90, if it's below 90, we're okay. We can add 5 to that. It's a bit complicated because 555 keeps turning up, but it's circuit 5 here. That's adding 5 to that value, whatever the value was, and then sending it to circuit 5. So this new value, 2 values get sent. Circuit number and the increased value of the potentiometer gets sent to number 5. If we're above 90 or above, the only place to go is send 100 to it, and that's that done. And then the decrease one is check that we're above 10. If we're above 10, then we can take 5, minus 5. There's the 5 off of that, and send it to circuit 5. So they're the 2 values that get sent to that light potentiometer. If not, if we're at 10 or below, then the only way is to go to 0. So we send a 0 to there and then switch the circuit off. So it's exactly the same. So again, copy and pasting. In fact, you don't copy and paste in the editor. Let's bring the editor in and you can see what I would do if I was going to do something like this. Let's bring my editor in. What I would do if I wanted that to be edited for a different potentiometer, what I would do is give it a new name here. So this will be my test or demo, and I would save that as a new script straight away. So I'm now working on my new script, and you'll see that it's here. It's in the demo section still. It's test, and say I wanted to now control potentiometer number 10. I would go through here and change all the potentiometer settings to 10 and then update it. So that's how I would not copy and paste, but I would get in the script that's as close as I wanted to and then save it with a new name. So save as new and then make my changes and update that script. So it's all going to that script there. But what I want to do now is to get rid of that script. So if I just go to make sure that's highlighted, make sure that's the right one there, and we will now delete that script and it will check, do you really want to demonstrate the test one? Delete the test one. Yep, goodbye, gone. Okay, so that's scripting. You can use these here to insert the various bits and pieces you want. So if you wanted to insert glare shield lights on, that's a K event, so it's an event, and let's look for glare, and we'll apply that as a filter. Glare shield lights on, so I can double click and put that in. In fact, it's put the whole thing in for us. It's put the pipeline, that's going there straight on, but it won't do the same for this. If I want to check now my light potentiometer, let's put that in as a variable, pot, and I want to put in my light potentiometer. It thinks I want to read it, which I do here, but if I want to write ever to that, I would have to put the sign in, but we aren't going to write to that. We're going to write it as a key event, so that will work there. Okay, so I hope that sort of tidies things up and clears things up for you. I said I'll reference my other videos as well, if I can find the right numbers for them, so you can see in more detail how I'm using the script editor if you need those more details. Okay, so that's how the lights work. If I just quickly bring back my Stream Deck. Oh, it's got darker, and let's bring back my Stream Deck so you can see what's going on. So let's see if we can bring up the instrument lights. So I'll be pressing on here on my actual Stream Deck to bring that to 100%, and I should be able to dim that down. And really it doesn't become effective until the last few percent. It's just the way the percentages work on it. So that's working, and I can turn that off with the key press, and I'll now do the same. I'll turn the floodlight on to 100% with one single press, and then I'll dim that down. So there's my glare shield, and let's have a look at what it looks like outside. Let's change my view slightly. Okay, so that's what the outside looks like. Let's turn that floodlight off, and let's just have some instrument lights up and running. And that's all the control we've got, really. We can turn that up and down, and we can turn our cabin lights on and off. Let's turn everything off. There's my long press, and there's my cabin lights coming on. That's my pilot, and over here I've got my co-pilot light on. And we can turn those off. Okay, so that's the lighting done for you. What's next? Yeah, it'll be the buttons here for the primary flight display. That's what we need to do next. That's a fairly lengthy little one to have a go at. Okay, I'll see you around for another video.